talked about this before in reference to the Nord Stream pipeline on this show. It was actually Seymour Hersh who wrote an article via Substack explaining that he had information that showed that basically the U.S. actually blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. Now, obviously, there has been pushback from that in reference to the White House and mainstream media as well. But Seymour Hersh has been uncovering more information as we've gone along. And now we have information from the gray zone that actually may lean more Seymour Hersh's way. If you have not seen this, shout out to those of you that sent this article to me. And I have a clip that I'm going to show from Max as well. This boot is significant, and I'm going to explain why. The Gray Zone said independent Nord Stream expedition discovers clue missed by official investigators. And this is by Jeffrey Brodsky. So here it is. The Gray Zone participated in what appears to be the first independent expedition investigating the sabotage of the Nord Stream pipelines. Near one of the blast sites, we discovered a diving boot used by U.S. Navy divers. How did Swedish investigators miss this? So this is huge. This is significant.
Okay, so I'm sitting here with Eric Anderson, and Eric has looks like an interesting device in his hand. It is May 23rd, late afternoon, and we are in the Danish exclusive economic zone, and we are right above one of the blast sites of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. So Eric, what are you going to be doing here?
Well, I'm going to go down along a line. There is a buoy. And it would have been nice if the captain had told me exactly if that buoy is on the west side or the east side of the pipeline. But I'm going to go down there, and I was there before, so I know. I think I'm going to try to look at the depth, because I have the depth profile, and the depth will tell me something about where I am. And once I know where I am, I'm going to decide whether to go east or west or north, because I only really have a compass. Okay, let's go.
This is first mate.
So here we go.
Rico Fries. He's just thrown our drone in the water, and we'll see if we can get some images of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline.
Isn't it interesting what you can do with technology these days?
So you see here, we're going towards the buoy. And here I see the buoy. I'm turning on the film. I'm turning on the lights, and I'm starting to go down, and this looks
So earlier on our sonar, we captured some images, sonar images of large ruptures in the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and now we're going to try to do the same, but using the drone.
Yeah, so I wanted to show you that so you can actually see that they were physically there. I just wanted to show you that. So great work by Jeffrey. So it goes on to say, let me go down here. The Gray Zone has identified a model which closely resembles this boot and is used by both U.S. Navy and commercial divers. Ukrainian Navy divers have also been seen wearing similar boots. Hold on to this piece here, the Ukrainian divers, because I have another revelation I'm going to reveal to you as well today. We have also learned that the boot's presence had been previously reported to investigators, yet they have not collected it or divulged its existence. So the Swedish investigators basically pretended like this boot didn't even exist. Why would they do that, right? Because it goes against the narrative that came from the State Department, which was that Russia blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. And we've talked about this before. We're expected to believe that Russia blew up their own pipeline their own bridge. Like, none of this makes any sense, but a lot of people have fallen for this. So shout out to the Gray Zone for independent journalism. And here we have video footage here. So this is underwater. Let me get my little cursor out the way. There's the boot. Now, what I want to know, for the divers who were there, you lost your boot. You didn't feel the boot come off. Like, what happened? That's boot. There it is. So again, I wanted to show you the video footage so you could see that it wasn't just a picture that someone took and placed in this article here. Now, we've talked about before what took place in reference to the Nord Stream pipeline. You can see the map here. But this is very significant, you guys, because how is it that the Gray Zone can show up there, independent journalists, and they can do their due diligence in reference to reporting, but no one else can seem to do this, right? So what's really significant here is that the Gray Zone released this information, and Eric, you can put the link to the article in the chat. They released this information, and now the Washington Post, this is very interesting. All of a sudden, they have decided to reveal maybe it wasn't Russia after all. And I find it very strange that this article was released by the Washington Post after the article from the Gray Zone was published. Coincidence? I don't think so. U.S. had intelligence of detailed Ukrainian plan to attack the Nord Stream pipeline. Come again? Let's go into it. Look, they want to admit now, they're finally admitting that it wasn't Russia. 3 months before saboteurs bombed the Nord Stream natural pipeline, the Biden administration learned from a close ally that the Ukrainian military had planned a covert attack on the undersea network using a small team of divers who reported directly to the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian armed forces. I want to highlight this first sentence. 3 months before the Nord Stream pipeline was bombed, the Biden administration learned from a close ally that the Ukrainian military had planned a covert attack on the undersea network 3 months before, which means that the Biden administration could have prevented this. This is huge news. Now, don't get me wrong, the Washington Post is super late. Super late, because independent media had already revealed this. The Gray Zone had covered this. Seymour Hersh had revealed this, that it was not Russia that blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. So the Washington Post is late. So what I want to know is who gave the okay for the Washington Post to publish this information, and why reveal it now? I believe it's revealed now because the Gray Zone published that article which showed the boot. You can't make this up. You really can't. Once again, you're supposed to trust them, though. You're supposed to trust mainstream media. You're supposed to trust the New York Times, the Washington Post. You're supposed to trust these people, but they didn't even get their information correct. But independent journalists did. Somebody owes Seymour Hersh a huge apology. Details about the plan, which have not been previously reported, were collected by European intelligence service and shared with the CIA in June of 2022. June of 2022. They provided some of the most specific evidence to date linking the government of Ukraine to the eventual attack in the Baltic Sea, which U.S. and Western officials have called a brazen and dangerous act of sabotage on Europe's energy infrastructure. All of these countries that were depending on that pipeline, that have struggled over the past year, somebody seriously is going to have to give Russia an apology. And I want to see if the Biden administration will address this. Now, let's not forget that Jose, Vega, and other activists have confronted politicians that are a part of the Biden administration about this particular issue. They've confronted politicians about the Nord Stream pipeline bombing as well. They've also confronted journalists from the Washington Post, from the New York Times, about their information about the Nord Stream pipeline and Seymour Hersh's article. And they were dragged out of these venues when they were just asking the question, why aren't you talking about Seymour Hersh's article? So now, all of a sudden, it's okay for them to say that Russia didn't do it. I am going to sit back and pay close attention this week because I really, really, really want to hear what the Biden administration has to say about this. A press conference is due today. They should have done this today. Let's go on. The European intelligence report was shared on the chat platform Discord. Discord is making the rounds. Discord is revealing Pentagon documents, everything. Allegedly by the Air National Guard member, Jack Teixeira. Remember, this is the 21-year-old, right? He's in prison right now. They have him in custody. The Washington Post obtained a copy from one of Teixeira's online friends. The intelligent report was based on information obtained from an individual in Ukraine. The source's information could not be immediately corroborated, but the CIA shared the report with Germany and other European countries last June, according to multiple officials familiar with the matter, who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive intelligence operations and diplomatic discussions. I mean, all of these outlets owe Seymour Hersh an apology. The statement that was released from the White House, they need to retract that statement in reference to his article where they said it was utterly false and complete fiction. They need to reverse all of that. Now, Max Blumenthal recently talked about this on Rising. Listen to what Max had to say about this. By the way, Max has been making the rounds this week. The Gray Zone has been killing it.
Well, this is not the only discovery that's been made by this expedition. This is just the first in what will likely be a multi-part investigation. A small expedition on a boat called the Baltic Explorer, led by a Swedish engineer named Eric Anderson, embarked to the sites of the Nord Stream pipelines. I believe it's the first independent expedition to the blast sites where $23 billion pipelines were blown up in the worst act of industrial sabotage, severing Germany from its supply of cheap energy from Russia in an obvious attack on both Russia and Germany. And we managed at the Gray Zone to get a reporter on that boat, to get him a seat on that boat. His name is Jeffrey Brodsky. And they sent drones underwater at the blast sites and found, among other things, a boot. It is a diver's boot, an outer boot. We confirmed it to be a Thor outer boot. This is a boot that has been seen in use by U.S. Navy divers. A similar boot called the Viking has also been seen in use. Ukrainian divers have been seen with similar boots. It has also been used by commercial divers, especially in contaminated areas.
But not Russia. I want to remind you again that Germany just entered a recession. Who's gonna apologize for this? Who? Where is everybody? Where's all the politicians that voted to send billions of dollars to Ukraine? Where are they at? All of you have mud on your faces right now. All of you. This is embarrassing. If I was a politician that voted for that funding, I would be embarrassed right now. If I was one of the mainstream media outlets that blamed Russia for this, I would be embarrassed right now. And you wonder why more people are turning away from mainstream media. You wonder why their ratings are decreasing. This is a hot mess. Back to Das Boot.
And so we determined that this was a clue that should at least be looked at. We're committed to getting all the evidence out there because the investigations, the official investigations by Sweden, for example, have not made their findings public, and it's been 8 months. So we've learned that Nord Stream 2, the company that owns these destroyed pipelines, had actually reported the boot to Swedish investigators. We also learned through a source that Swedish divers had never even visited this site, so it can't be one of their boots. But the question is, why didn't the Swedish investigative team show any interest in this? Are they even interested in learning who the perpetrators are?
Or were they paid off? Were they told not to mention it? Who are these investigators? Shouldn't the White House be doing everything they can right now to get them on the phone?
It's sort of seems like a major oversight.
Yeah, I can definitely see someone making the case that multiple types of people of various national origins have access to these boots, that there is reporting at this point that it could have been, Ukrainian nationals, although there's still a denial that the Ukrainian government was involved. And so the boot is not that much of a red flag, except for it is interesting finding out that there was knowledge of the boot, but a failure to disclose the boot, which really does raise the question, what else might not have been disclosed and how thorough were these investigations that we're supposed to be relying on as having, cleared the U.S. from being involved. So
that's right. And one thing I want to add too, it would be different if they didn't know about this, but we know that they knew. We know that it was reported. So why would they not include this in their investigation? This is why I say question everything. Question everything.
What else? First of all, I would love to hear a little bit more about how you gained access to this expedition, and also anything else that you learned that you think might be more significant than the discovery of the boot in and of itself.
Well, the engineer, Eric Anderson, gained access through permits by notifying Swedish and Danish maritime authorities about the expedition, and he gained the relevant permits through the Swedish Defense Authority, which also raises questions about why no one else bothered to do this. He then sent drones underwater and filmed the blast sites. And so I think there's more coming. Hopefully there will be more coming with expert analysis on the size of the blasts, how much explosives were possibly used, the placement of the explosives, and this will be highly relevant to making an attribution about who the perpetrators are. And right now, in my view, the most likely perpetrator is the United States, as put forward by Seymour Hersh, who speculated that massive amounts of some kind of C4 explosives were planted in the mud below the pipelines by U.S. Navy divers in coordination with Norway. And this attack was celebrated by everyone from Assistant Secretary of State Victoria Nuland to Secretary of State Tony Blinken, who called it a major economic opportunity. The U.S. liquid natural gas industry is celebrating this enormously. So they seem to be the most likely perpetrators. As you said, Ukrainians are also suspected. But what's important here is...
I'm going to add an allegedly. Okay. I know someone said in the chat, be careful, Max. Yeah, I'm going to add an allegedly. But this just means that someone intentionally screwed up Germany's economy. If I was Germany, listen, if you're watching now and you live in Germany, if I were you, I'd be pissed.
That the whole media, with so much more resources than us, has neglected to do this. And the official investigators have kept their findings from the public and are not scraping up these clues from the ocean floor. When we came across the boot with the drone, it almost seemed absurd that it was there. And then even more absurd that no one had bothered to collect it and examine it. So let's let this play out. And hopefully this will actually force the official investigators to actually do some work. The problem is they might wind up biting the hand that feeds them as members of NATO. Pointing the finger at the U.S. seems to be off limits for these vassal states.
And one of the things I want to add as well, you notice you watch the video when he put the drone into the water. You see how easy that was for them to do? So the other investigators could have done the same thing. I don't think they were trying to find the truth. I think they were trying to find enough information to fit the narrative of the State Department. I think that's what they were trying to do. That was easy. That's why I wanted to show you the video in the article. Look how easy he did that. This was what?
Mainstream media has been slowly pivoting away from, oh, why would Russia do this? You know, realizing that that made no sense, to a kind of, well, I guess we'll never know. It's a mystery, but who really cares? Is it that important? Do you predict any kind of revisiting of that approach, you know, in the face of mounting evidence that the statements by U.S. officials that, right, not just celebrating it after it happened, but predicting that something like this would occur, a vague kind of menacing threat that something like this would occur?
Right.
You know, when does that, when does that combination of all those factors draw some mainstream attention?
Yeah, especially from the German mainstream media. I mean, it's their economy that's on the chopping block here.
Yep.
And they don't really have an economic plan B. So where is the outrage? Why are German officials so circumspect, if not reticent, about the worst act of industrial sabotage attacking their critical infrastructure?
I'm going to try to see if I can interview a politician from Germany to get their take on this, because I think, guys, if we put ourselves in their positions, you would be livid, right? You would be upset. Like, what is where are they? You know, I mean, just imagine, look at how many people are still, by the way, still out in the streets in France protesting against the pension reform from Macron. Are Germans going to protest in reference to this? Do they know? Has this information been relayed to them? Very interesting times we're living in.
And so that's why I think this independent expedition is so necessary in forcing the issue and gathering as many clues as possible, even in examining, hopefully in examining and possibly determining what type of explosive was used to make an attribution, because we can no longer trust even the target of this attack, the German government or the German media that seems to be acting as its lackey. We can't trust them. So independent media means going out there, gathering clues, gathering evidence, and putting it out there for experts to analyze. And this was just the first step towards, I think, in a much longer process in examining something that should never, ever have been allowed to happen in the so-called rules-based order put forward by Tony Blinken. It kind of makes it clear that the Biden administration is saying, we make the rules and you follow our orders.
And I just want to add something here, because I think this is a very telling moment. Remember, a while back, I did explain to you that Germany had agreed to send Leopard tanks to Ukraine because the Biden administration had decided to do so. And so they felt pressured from the U.S. government to follow that path as well, even though the majority of people in Germany did not approve of this. The Green Party in Germany did approve of it, and they decided to go forward with that order. And now I wonder how they feel knowing that this was obviously intentional. And according to the Washington Post, they're saying it's more likely to be the Ukrainian government. Max Blumenthal is saying he thinks it's more so the U.S. that did it. But either way, the thing is, it was intentionally done, and it was not Russia. And Germany signed on to send these Leopard tanks to Ukraine. I wonder how the Green Party in Germany must be feeling right now that they went along with the U.S. government instead of holding firm and waiting for more information to be released at this point in time. I really wonder how they feel. And this speaks to a larger issue, which was presented by President Macron. Again, I have many criticisms of him, but one thing that he did mention recently is that he does not think that Europe should necessarily continue to follow the lead of the US and that Europe should try to be a third world power. Would this push Germany maybe more so in that direction? BRICS is looking more attractive to more countries. We'll have to stay tuned. We'll have to stay tuned. This is a mess. I feel like if this were a soap opera, I don't know. There was a soap opera called The Days of Our Lives. I don't know. The Pipeline of Our Lives. I don't know what you would call it, but that's what it feels like. This is crazy. And who got it right? Who got it right first? Let's be clear. It was independent media that got it right first. The same people who criticized Seymour Hersh, who didn't want to talk about his article, the press briefing from the White House where they said it's utterly false and complete fiction. Independent media got it right and mainstream media got it wrong. This is not the first time that this has happened. Is this happening often? More so now. And then they wonder why people are pulling away from mainstream media. Welcome to the Thunderdome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Thunderdome. JB says, we were waiting for the shoe to drop, but clearly it was a boot. That's boot. Shout out to Hardlands Media, Kit in the chat. Keep speaking truth to power, Sabby Sabs. Thank you so much, Kit. Shout out to Hardlands. I love it. I love it. Days of booty. I love it. That one's better than Pipeline of Our Lives. I love it. I love it.